In this video, you are going to get a front row seat to the ultimate Springboks versus Scotland at Murrayfield preview. I will look at the two teams, compare their strengths and weaknesses. I'll also give you my opinion on foreign-born players turning out for different countries, i.e. Duan van der Merwe, and of course we will finish with a prediction. But let's start by taking a look at the two teams. Interestingly, Dr. Rassie Erasmus chose to name his Springbok squad on Friday. That is not something that I recall ever happening before. Nevertheless, here it is. We'll start in the front row. Oxenchair, Bongi Mbonambi and Thomas du Toit. Eben Etzebeth is going to be the captain for this one, with Franco Mostert back from injury. He is in the number 5 jersey. Marco van Staden, Elrich Lowe and Kwagga Smith will make up the loose trio, with Kwagga playing his 50th test match for South Africa. Jaden Hendrickse, Handré Pollard, that's your halfback combination with Makazole Mapimpi and Kanan Moody on the wings. Andre Esterhuizen and Lucanio are in the centres. And Willie Leroux is at fullback playing his 98th test match for South Africa. Let's have a look at the bomb squad now. Malcolm Marx, Gerard Steenekamp and Vincent Koch. That's your brand new front row. Coming on somewhere around the 45th minute, I would have thought. Adgius Snyman, Sia Kolisi, Pieter-Steph du Toit and Jasper Visser are the other forwards on the bench. That makes for a 7-1 split, with Grant Williams the only backline player in the matchday squad for the Boks. Okay, let's take a look now at what Gregor Townsend has decided to do for Scotland. Starting with the forwards, Piers Skuman, Ewan Ashman and Xander Fagerson will be the front row, with the double G, Grant Gilchrist and Scott Cummings making up the second row. Matt Fagerson, Rory Dodge and Jack Dempsey will be the loose trio for the Scots. And then in the back line, Ben White and Finn Russell will be the halfback combination. Duan van der Merwe and Blair Kinghorn on the wings. Kinghorn usually more of a fullback, but nevertheless. Sione Tui Pulotu is the captain. He's at 12 with Hugh Jones on his outside. And then Tom Jordan is the fullback. Here are their replacements. Dylan Richardson, Rory Sutherland and Elliot Miller-Mills. That is the brand new front row. That I don't know exactly when they will come on, but that is the replacement front row. Replacement front row. Max Williamson, Josh Bayliss and Jamie Ritchie are also on the bench for the forward, so that makes for a 6-2 split, with Jamie Dobie and Stafford McDowell being the backline players that will come on at some stage. Now, just before we compare the two lineups, I want to tell you guys about my brand new book. It's actually my first book that I've written. It's called How to Become a Sports Journalist. Now, I know that many of you might be the same age as me, or maybe a little bit older, and you might have kids who are in high school or university or thereabouts. And this book is especially for them. Anybody who's interested in becoming a sports journalist, that is who I have written this book for. I will give you insider tips and knowledge and information that I promise you are not going to get at university. Believe me, I wish they had told me some of these things when I was there back in the day. It's currently not available in South Africa at bookstores, although I am working on it, but you can order it on Amazon, and the link will also be in the description area below. Okay, now as promised, let's compare the two lineups, starting with the forwards. So if we look at the Springboks, you've got a front row comprising Oxenchair, Bongi Mbonambi and Thomas du Toit, which, let's be honest, that is pretty formidable. I'm going to go with the tight 5 here as well, Eben Etzebeth and Franco Mostert. And if we compare that to Piers Skuman, Ewan Ashman and Xander Fagerson, as well as Grant Gilchrist and Scott Cummings, with all due respect, you've got to say that the Springboks are more powerful in every one of those departments. That's not to take anything away from Scotland. They're a very good side these days. They've improved drastically in the last few years. A lot of people say that they are the strongest they've ever been in their history. Maybe the problem is that South Africa are also the strongest they've ever been in their history, you could argue. Marco van Staden, Elrich Lowe and Kwagga Smith making up the loose trio. And if we compare that to what Scotland have going on in the back row, Matt Fagerson, Rory Dodge and Jack Dempsey. Again, these are good players, but to be very honest, if you're going to compare one-on-one, there's just no ways that any of them live with the Boks. That's just the harsh reality. Let's go to the back line now, and we'll compare the halfback combination first, Jaden Hendrickse and Handré Pollard. Hendricks are obviously more of a new player. Pollard, the experienced campaigner with 2 World Cup titles under his belt. You compare that with Ben White and Finn Russell. Again, you would say maybe Ben White, if you were going to pick a combined team, he might actually make the team ahead of Hendricks at this stage. Maybe. I'm just trying to find gaps here. Finn Russell is another one who some people would argue could make a combined team ahead of Handré Pollard. The difference, of course, is that Pollard is the Iceman, isn't he? Finn Russell, I think, for me, most notably, I would go back to 2021, and when the British and Irish Lions were touring South Africa, and you remember that third test, it was crunch time in Cape Town. The Boks won it with that late penalty from Mornay Steyn, and you'll remember that the Boks were probably the better team overall, sort of like a 52-48, 53-47, if I gave my assessment on it. But the one time in that match where the Lions looked really dangerous and the Boks looked like they were in some semblance of trouble was when Finn Russell came onto the field as a replacement fly half. Now, you could say that perhaps the Boks learnt their lesson, because we saw last year at the Rugby World Cup when we beat them 18-3 in Marseille, that Russell was largely neutralised. That is, again, the rush defence, closing him down quickly, not giving him space to be able to do anything. And I think that if you do that, that is one of the keys to defeating Scotland. Let's have a look at the rest of the backline quickly. Starting again with South Africa, Makazole Mapimpi and Kainan Moody on the wings, Andre Esterhuizen and Lucanio Am in the centres with Willie Leroux at fullback. Look at what Scotland have. Duan van der Merwe. Now, this is a guy who divides opinion. A lot of people rate him as a world-class player. I think he's a very good player. Is he world-class? I'll leave that to you to decide. I just think, I saw a great interview earlier in the week where Victor Matfield actually commented about him and asking the question, would he have become a Springbok if he had stayed in South Africa? And I think the honest answer is we don't know. But if you really were to push me, I would say I don't know. And I'd probably go with I don't think so. Would Duan van der Merwe wear the 11 jersey ahead of Makazole Mapimpi? Would he wear the 11 jersey ahead of Kurtley Arendse or Cheslin Colby, as we've also seen in the 11 jersey? I'll leave you to answer those questions. Blair Kinghorn, to me, more of a fullback, although I will grant you that I don't watch Scotland very closely. So maybe for me that's a bit of a surprise, but clearly Townsend knows what he's doing. Then you've got Sione Tui Pulotu as the captain. He's at inside centre with Hugh Jones. URC fans and Stormers fans in particular will recognise him. And then Tom Jordan is the fullback, and you compare him directly with Willie Leroux. Honestly, guys, if I look at that backline, 2 players at most might, from Scotland's side, make a combined 15. Again, I say this with the greatest of respect. I'm trying to find a gap or a route where I can say to you at the end of this video that I think Scotland could win. But I'm struggling to find that path right now. Let's have a look at the replacements, starting with our bomb squad. Malcolm Marx, Gerard Steenekamp and Vincent Koch, they are coming onto the field to wreak havoc. Can the Scottish front row, whether it be the starters or Dylan Richardson, Rory Sutherland and Elliot Miller-Mills, cope with them? I don't think so. How about Max Williamson, Josh Bayliss and Jamie Richardson? Now, we're comparing a 6-2 to a 7-1, I grant you, but if you compare them with Ergia Snyman, Siya Kolisi, Peter Steph de Toey and Jasper Visser, quite frankly, it looks like the Boks are planning on steamrolling Scotland in the last 20, 25, 30 minutes. And then we've got Grant Williams, an exciting player. He's going to come on. They've got Stafford McDowell and Jamie Dobie. So it's clear that I'm not of the impression that Scotland have got much of a chance here. If you compare individuals and if you compare the combinations, I just think the Boks look far too strong in every department. However, having said that, that doesn't mean that teams can't spring surprises. Scotland have beaten us 5 times in their history. 2 of those have come in the last 22 years. So if you're watching this video, you probably know about those 2 defeats. One was in the Rudolph Strowley era. The other came when Peter de Villiers was our coach. Scotland themselves, obviously, they have to believe that they can beat us. There is confidence in their ranks. We mentioned Dodge, their flanker, a little bit earlier, and he actually thinks that Scotland's club teams participating in the URC alongside South African franchises is something that has helped them to get to know our players better, maybe get a better feel of how to combat our players. And of course, don't forget Dodge plays for the Glasgow Warriors, who famously won the URC this year, beating the Bulls at Loftus Versfeld in the final. Here's what Dodge had to say. It is a good thing that we've had the experience of playing South Africa. A lot of the group have had the experience of playing them now, so I have a bit of a better idea of what's coming. Now, okay, I don't dispute what he's saying, and there's a lot of merit in what he's saying. Having said that, I watched Scotland last weekend when they destroyed Fiji 57-17, and there were a few things that stood out for me. The Fijian defence is nowhere near as tight as the Springbok defence. So if anyone watching that thought that Scotland are dangerous on attack, and let's be honest, they do have a good attack, but they're not going to slice through our defence the way they slice through the Fijian defence. It just isn't going to happen. Our defence is far more compact, it's tighter, it's better organised, and let's be very honest with each other here, our players can actually tackle. That kind of helps when you're trying to stop the opposition from scoring tries. Similarly, I think that Scotland's defence proved that it may not be as tight as they might want it to be, with the Fijians aiming to breach the defence a couple of times. And yeah, okay, if you put 57 on the board, that inevitably means that your defence might actually have a few more gaps, which makes it easier, especially for things like counter-attacks, and Fiji obviously are a very dangerous team with ball in hand. But again, I think that the Springbok attack, and we've seen glimpses of it throughout this rugby championship season, especially in that last match against Argentina, and there were glimpses of it in other matches as well. I just think we've got too much for the Scots. Now, with all of that being said, let's take a look at the history between these two teams. So over the years, South Africa and Scotland have played each other 29 times, and South Africa have won 24 of those. Scotland have won 5. And as it turns out, all 5 of those victories have come in Scotland, but not all of them have come at Murrayfield. One actually came at Glasgow, and that's why when you look at this at Murrayfield statistic, we've played 18 at that famous ground, with the Springboks winning 14, the Scots winning 4. Interestingly, that also tells you that South Africa and Scotland have played each other 11 times away from Murrayfield. 2 of those were in Scotland. One was in Glasgow, the other was in Edinburgh, but not at Murrayfield. Then there were 2 other meetings at the Rugby World Cup in England and in France, so that's another 4 meetings, and that leaves just 7 occasions for South Africa and Scotland to have done battle on South African soil. So as you can see, we really don't play them very often in South Africa, and that might be something that would be nice to see change in the coming years. And here's a quick look at the last 5 meetings between the two teams overall. 18-3 last year at the Rugby World Cup. A couple of years before that, we were in Scotland at Murrayfield. We won 30-15. 26-20, the occasion before that, also at Murrayfield. South Africa winning 34-16 against the Scots at the Rugby World Cup in 2015. And then we hammered them 55-6 in South Africa in 2014. Now, just before I give you my prediction, as promised at the beginning of the video, something else I promised I would do is give you a breakdown of what I think about foreign-born players turning out for other countries. So Duan van der Merwe is obviously Exhibit A in this example. But if you look at Scotland, I know he's not playing in this match, but Kyle Steyn would be an example. Pierre Schoeman, who is involved in this fixture. And then someone like Via Pianel, who represented Scotland on many, many occasions. So, some people say that there's something that just doesn't feel right with guys like surnames like van der Merwe, Schoeman, Nel, and so on, turning out for a country like Scotland. I think to the Rugby World Cup in 2019 in Japan, where Lapis Labuschagne captained them on a couple of occasions. Labuschagne is not exactly a common surname in Tokyo or Osaka, you would say. We've also seen guys with Afrikaans surnames, or even Samoan, Fijian, Tongan names turning out for Scotland, Wales, Ireland, England, France, Italy, most famously perhaps Japan, where there's a bit of a gap. Given the geography, they're not too far away. But we've also seen it for the United States and for Canada, among others. In fact, last year at the Rugby World Cup, South Africa and Argentina were the only two countries where 100% of the members of the squad actually came from those countries. So you can see how some people don't like it when there's a Skuman or a Van der Merwe turning out for Scotland, because maybe there's a credibility issue. Some people say that you want your country, your national team, to be associated with a certain culture, maybe a certain kind of flair or something that is unique to you. We know what's unique to South Africa. Most famously, it was said last year, "Hulle weet nie wat ons weet nie." We also know that there are unique things to New Zealand. So if an American suddenly turned out for the All Blacks, would it feel right? Maybe not. Maybe it's different when you're talking about the very, very top teams, South Africa, New Zealand, for example, where we don't really have that many, although you could say, as Eddie Jones once famously pointed out, that New Zealand have the best youth academy in the world. It's called Fiji, Tonga and Samoa. It's not really a joke, is it? It is actually true. South Africa have also had Zimbabwe-born players and even Namibian-born players. Percy Montgomery was born in Walvis Bay. Adrian Garvey, Gary Teichmann, Bobby Skinstad, they were all born in Zimbabwe. Tendai, the Beast, Mtawarira, he's from Zimbabwe. Corne Krige, former Springbok captain, he was born in Zambia. So you see how these things sometimes play out. Then on the other side of the argument, they say, well, would Japan, for example, have grown to the point where they are now had they not had the assistance of players from Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, maybe New Zealand, Australia, wherever the case may be? And you can see how by bringing those players in, it helped them, and eventually they got to the point where they were able to cause that massive upset at the 2015 Rugby World Cup. I, of course, am not going to mention who it was that they caused that upset against. I love the way Springbok centre Andre Esterhuizen summed it up. I would much rather have 18 tests for the Boks under my belt than 70 for a country I wasn't born in. People have different opinions about it, but I'm proudly South African. I love our country and the team, and I'm satisfied. I'd be very interested to hear what your thoughts are. What do you think about the idea of non-citizens, or even residents for that matter, turning out for other countries? Now, while you give that some thought, you might want to make it a highlighted comment, and the way that you can do that is by hitting the Super Thanks button down there. That's the button that looks like a heart and it's got a $sign inside of it. By doing that, you'll have a highlighted comment. I will click the heart button on your comment. I will reply to it as well, and you'll be invited to make a small donation to my channel. Why am I asking you to do this? Well, I want to go to the Rugby World Cup in 2027 in Australia for you and cover it for you on a daily basis with video content. I'm going to need a little bit of money to make that happen, and that's why I'm asking you to help me out with a super thanks. Now, as promised, here is my prediction for the match. Just like was the case in 2021 when these two teams met, I'm going with South Africa 30, Scotland 15. So let me know what you think is going to be the score when these two teams face off on Sunday at Murrayfield in the comment section down below. Doesn't have to be super thanks if you don't want to, but what you can do if you want to help me out is you can crock roll the like button. You can also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And a couple of videos that I'd like to recommend for you on this channel. I mentioned Corne Krige earlier on. Well, he was the captain of South Africa when the Boks lost to Scotland in 2002 at Murrayfield. That video is appearing on your screen right over here. And South Africa, after returning to international rugby in 1992, toured Scotland in 94. We beat them at Murrayfield, and Driekus Hatting, one of the hard men of Springbok rugby, actually left that tour early. You'll find out why in this fascinating video over here. I will see you in the next video.